actually load.
Great.
And then it should give us a notification when it actually went through.
Okay. And I'll be able to share my screen, right? There's no
Yep.
restrictions. Okay.
No limitations on that. The only problem that you'll run into is if you and Kyle want to share it at the same time. So you both can share it separately, but
okay.
Same time won't work, but that's usually
I think we should be good because Garrett, I think, is gonna share his and control the presentation for the most part.
Okay, so we are now live on YouTube, and I'll start the recording just so people can join.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Perfect.
And then we'll wait for people to roll in, because like you said, you know, if they join 5-10 minutes early, they don't see anybody.
Yeah.
Or if they're not allowed into the meeting, they might not think that they're in the right place. So this will hopefully get some beforehand.
And Tyler, you're able to see the number of participants?
Yeah.
I think we do you see it as well? If you click
yes, yeah.
Okay, got it.
I don't see any attendees yet though. I know we're early.
Yeah. So that'll be the people from the public, attendees. Are you expecting a certain number?
We don't know. So there could easily be 50. There could also be like 10. So we don't know.
Got it.
We tried to get the word out, and we're hoping that, but we, again, you know how these things are.
Yeah.
It might be a couple very vocal people and not a lot of.
It seems to be the case the majority of times. It's always how it usually goes.
Yeah, we hope we have a good turnout. I think there was 50 to 60 homes in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Okay. Should be a pretty good turnout. And let me make sure this is on the website so that people have access to it. And I'll also monitor the YouTube just in case anybody decides to put some chats through there. I'll keep an eye out for that.
Okay. Yeah, Tyler, could you it doesn't need to happen now, but just give us a link to that YouTube so I can see if there's comments on that.
I'll put it in the chat right now.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
And Tyler, when we do get to the second to last slide that has the comments page, feel free to chime in with any of your expertise. Try to think of every scenario, but if there's anything you want to add, feel free.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah, as of right now, you covered mostly everything. Just I'll keep an eye out if there's a phone number in here. It doesn't give them the same options, but you know, if there's not, then it'll be pretty easy. I don't know why the chat isn't working. It might be because we're in a meeting and not a. Or we're in a webinar, not a meeting.
Interesting.
So I can email it to you actually.
Yeah, that's fine. Do you have my email, Tyler?
I do not have yours, Kyle, but actually, yes, I do because you're on the email that I'm on. So I'll just send it there.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Garrett, I hope you got home okay. I was hearing that there was more accidents on 15 and 95.
I didn't see any, but thankfully.
No, I'm okay. Cool.
Oh, okay. Diane, I see your hand up. Would you guys want me to take that question before we start?
Yeah, absolutely.
Requesting. Okay, so Diane, I'm going to allow you to talk. All you have to do is just click unmute on your screen, and then you can ask your question.
Oops, sorry about that. Am I on now?
Yes.
Yep, you are on.
Hi. Hi, everybody. Just wanted to ask too, I noticed the way the city's doing the meetings these days, the attendees don't get to see the other attendees in the room. So if you can provide a list of people who attended after the meeting, that would be helpful. And then also anyone who wants to go on camera, I hope you have that capability instead of just the audio. I don't think anyone will want to share their screen from the neighbor's side, but it is possible. So if they feel compelled to show you something, I hope we can do that. Thanks.
Tyler, is that a capability that we have?
Yeah, let me look into that right now.
I know. Guys, hang on 1 second. I think I'm having a technical difficulty. Hang on.
Sure thing. I know in the past they try to keep the attendees to not use the camera or screen sharing just for general, I guess, caution of the meeting. I'll see if there's a way that we can actually change the meeting settings. So the way the meetings are actually set up is that these guidelines and rules are put in place beforehand by somebody in the city. And then they just give us this template. So I'll reach out to them real quick and see what
we should stick with the protocol and the template. Okay. And I think, Tyler, we will give it 1 more minute and then we should get started just so we can.
Okay. And then Diane, I will.
Who is that speaking? It says TMP community. Who is speaking?
My name's Tyler. I'm from the IT department.
Oh, okay. Hi.
Hello. Okay. So we will, I'll put you back in the attendees. Again, I believe there will be a time to speak, if that's correct, Garrett.
Yes.
And then all you have to do is raise your hand again and I'll select you.
Great. Thanks. Also, whoops. Sorry. I'm also.
Oh, maybe. Where'd she go?
Sorry. I'm also not sure how many people may be attending this, but certainly if it's only a handful, I would ask that you not necessarily limit someone who wants to be able to speak, if they're making some relevant points or asking questions. Thanks.
Certainly.
All right, and Garrett, whenever you're ready, we can start.
Okay. Yeah. Let's get started in the effort of being respectful of everyone's time. I'm going to share my screen, and if you could just confirm that you can see it. Tyler, are you able to see the screen?
Yep, everything looks good to go.
Great. Good evening, everyone. So my name is Garrett Bilella. I'm the Assistant Director at the Transportation, Mobility, and Parking Department. And tonight I'm joined with Kyle Benjamin. He is our traffic analyst, as well as Tyler Hughes, who is hosting the session on behalf of the IT department. So tonight we're here to talk about our proposal for access improvements to Olmstead Place and East Avenue. And I'd just like to run through a little bit of the meeting flow. So this meeting is being recorded. We would like to give a brief presentation of the proposed improvements, after which point largely the majority of the meeting will be turned over to residents of Olmstead Place or Knickerbocker and to hear public comment, and we'd like it to be a dialogue. But we'll go over the guidelines and how we'll conduct the question and answer session at the end, but just like to start with a brief presentation. So we're here tonight because we've received some inquiries regarding access to and from Olmstead Place. So it was brought to our attention some of the challenges, whether it be entering and exiting the street at this location. Also had the opportunity, been with the city since February, but the opportunity to go out there and conduct some observations and also look at some be in the field as a drone pilot, flew some drones over the area. They were a consultant and they were working under CTDOT. So an opportunity to take a look at this intersection. And we acknowledge that there is challenges. It was brought to our attention that there was challenges in 2015 and there continue to be challenges today. So we took a look at the intersection and some of the improvements that might take place. You'll see in this picture that there is an existing "Do Not Block the Intersection" sign. And there's also a "Stop Here" on red sign on the northbound approach. But the reality is what often happens is due to the light that's just located to the north of East Avenue and Olmstead Place, traffic tends to queue back, spill through the intersection, and really block people getting into and out of the street. We recognize that the "Stop Here" on red and the "Do Not Block the Box" aren't currently working. So we looked at some suggestions and alternatives to improve that. So one of the things that we looked at was the implementation of "Do Not Block the Box" pavement markings and signage. So This is something that comes down from the federal government. It's one of the treatments in the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And it's also been adopted by our state and our Connecticut general statutes. And there is also an ordinance for the city of Norwalk for the implementation of do not block the box pavement markings and signage at locations where they're warranted. So you'll see a concept on the screen. On the right, you just have a larger view of the corridor. You can see Olmstead Place, that's where the red circle is. And you can see to the immediate north, we have a signalized intersection, do not block the box treatment. And then at Olmstead Place today, we only have do not block the box signage. But again, based on observations and inquiries, it appears that it isn't 100% effective. And we looked at some things to improve driver compliance and yielding the right of way at that intersection. So on the left side of the screen, you'll see the proposed treatment, you'll see the pavement markings, and you'll see the installation or the recommendation for the installation of a placard with the do not block the box intersection sign, which specifies subject to a $100 fine. This signage is only proposed on the northbound approach, really where the congestion is that is blocking traffic entering and exiting the street. It isn't our intention, and it isn't specified within the guidelines to provide these signs on any of the other approaches. I know there is some concern about vehicles entering or exiting the street and residents being ticketed because they have to enter the box to get through the street during times when it's highly congested. But the way it's specified in the federal guidelines and the Connecticut statutes, and again in our own ordinance, it really specifies that turning vehicles are exempt from do not block the box citations. And just wanted to make that aware. So one of the other things too, I also want to acknowledge is that in the implementation of these improvements, we are not proposing to change any of the access to or from the street. So there would be no prohibition of turn movements. With the installation of these pavement markings and this signage, residents would be able to enter to make left or right turns out of the street in the future and make left or right turns into the street as they do today. So we're not proposing to change any of the access to the street as well. So on this slide, I just provided the Norwalk City Code. I just want to be completely honest. So there really is no silver bullet. The way the ordinance is written, it excludes the operators of tractor trailers. So there could be particular instances in the future if a tractor trailer is proceeding through the intersection that they may block a portion of it, but they are exempt. They are exempt from the ordinance as it is written. You'll see here I also just highlighted that turning vehicles, so residents or visitors to and from the place, are also exempt from the citation for blocking the intersections. You'll just see below the requirements, and that's exactly what we showed on the previous slide, but that is to post signs with do not block the box intersection, the sub placard, which identifies the fine and discourages people from entering the intersection. In addition, the paint, which I think is really important, and I just want to point out that it's oftentimes it's challenging, and we as drivers find ourselves in situations where we don't really know if there's going to be adequate space on the other side of the intersection. But I think just painting the box makes it really clear, one, the available space you have on the other side of the intersection, and two, it reinforces the signage. As you saw on the previous slide, there's a stop here in red sign, but it's a 2-lane roadway. And if I'm in the inside lane, sometimes it's often hard to see that sign. And vehicles, if they feel they have space on the other side of the intersection, will enter it regardless. You'll see at the bottom, it just lists the intersections that have been approved. And should this move forward, this would have to move forward as a resolution before the council to adopt this intersection as well. The next and following slide, this is just the Connecticut general statute for do not block the box, but you can just see the consistency between our ordinance and the Connecticut general statutes. And it's really important as traffic engineer and as one member of hundreds of thousands of engineers within the state and across the nation that we really make sure that what we're proposing here is consistent with implementations throughout the rest of the state, in our own municipality and across the nation. So drivers have consistent expectations, and consistency is really what makes roadways safe. This next graphic is just from the state guidelines. So this is from the Connecticut Department of Transportation and the Office of the State Traffic Administration. But you'll see that there's just really two types of implementations for Don't Block the Box. On the right side of the screen, you'll see the treatment for a signalized intersection in the right center. And that's essentially what we have to the immediate north. On the left side of the screen, you'll see what we're proposing for a side street that's on a heavily congested approach to a signalized intersection, which is Olmstead at East Avenue at the approach to basically the exit 16 off ramps. So we would only provide the box in the direction of the congestion, which is largely prohibiting people from entering and exiting the site. And that is northbound. And you'll see here just some of the specifications that we would look to implement on the roadway. Just wanted to give a brief overview of the crash data for this location. So in addition to observations at the site, we also did pull the crash data. So you'll see on the left in the columns, it's divided between pre-COVID and a COVID analysis. But what we were really finding is for the 5+ years of data that we had pre-COVID, we had about 2 angled collisions at this intersection. And when we reviewed the accident reports, those were really related to vehicles entering, exiting the site. So approximately 1 accident every 2.5 years. During COVID, we saw the angled collisions in the pond review. There is 2 from people entering or exiting the roadway. But I can tell you that during COVID in the last few years, critical and fatal accidents have gone up, and so have accidents. So at this point, I wanted to take the opportunity to turn this meeting over to the residents and neighbors on the call. So as part of the question and answer process, I would really love it to just to be a dialogue. And I look forward to hearing to what you have to say. I think Tyler mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, but to speak, you'll have to click the raise your hand indicator, and we'll be keeping track of the order in which people raise their hands and calling on them on first come, first serve. To be respectful of everyone's time, we'll start with an initial allocation of 3 minutes until everyone speaks, at which point, after everyone's spoken, we can return to giving people an additional 3 minutes to speak. Just wanted to, again, be respectful, all questions, comments, and concerns. Just want them to be specific to this project and this proposal before you, and just be respectful of your neighbors. So at this point, I will turn it over to Tyler, and he can announce the first person with their hand raised. All I ask is that when you do speak, if you could just state your name for the record and also your address so that we can keep track of the comments as well. And this will be posted live on the city's website, most likely by tomorrow or the following day.
Okay, perfect. And then like Garrett said, whoever would like to speak, just hit the raise hand button on the bottom of your screen. I see we do have somebody who called in from the phone. It doesn't say your name, unfortunately, but if you would like to speak and you would like to raise your hand, all you have to do is hit *9. That'll raise your hand for you on my end. And then once I click on your name, I let you know, all you do is hit *6 to actually unmute and speak. Oh, but it looks like we just got a new attendee right after I explained it, so I'll do it again. Whoever would like to speak, you can just raise your hand. I'll call on you, unmute you, and then you can ask your question or state whatever statement you have. All right, Diane, so I will allow you to talk, and then that will give you the option to unmute, and then you can go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, thanks. It's Diane Cece. So my first question would be, and I'm 37 Olmstead Place.
Great, thank you.
How many residents are actually on this call meeting?
Tyler, it appears as though we have 4 people that have either joined through Zoom or dialed in.
Yeah, so it looks like there's 4 on Zoom, and then there are 2 currently watching on YouTube, unsure if they're actually residents or not.
Okay, 2.
Okay, so I really had intended to, because I had requested this meeting, I really would like to hear from the residents. So I just wanted to give them an opportunity to raise their hand. Is there anyone whose hand is raised right now, or?
At the moment, it doesn't look like it. Again, for the person who called in case you did want to raise your hand, if you wanted to speak, just hit *9 on your phone's keypad, and that'll raise your hand for you.
Okay, and otherwise, then I can maybe make some comments, and then if anyone from the neighborhood wants to jump in. And based on the attendance as well, I wanted to kind of open with a point to say that in an email that I sent to the city officials, I had requested that this item not be taken up at the city's traffic authority at their meeting this month, to give the residents an opportunity who are on the call and not on the call tonight, be able to understand the presentation and also have their questions and concerns addressed, and possibly to come up with some alternative solutions. So I'm not sure if it's still slated for the December meeting or not.
So I think, Diane, what we would like to do is we would like to leave this open at the end of the presentation on the next slide, and I can actually go there, I believe, right now. I've placed my contact information, so if anyone wasn't able to attend tonight, this video will be posted online, and we will certainly look forward to any questions and comments people feel comfortable sending, whether it be a mail or email is also a great contact. But we'd like to leave it open to solicit more feedback.
Okay, great. Yeah, and the reason why, I'll give you just some history on that, is that this item just appeared out of nowhere on the traffic authority agenda for November. And had I not been checking agendas that weekend, no one on Olmstead or Knickerbocker would have known that this was a possibility again. I'm raising it as a concern, and it's valid, that this is exactly the same way this item was presented to the traffic authority back in February of February of 2015. No one on the streets was made aware of it, and had it not been for myself checking the agenda, we wouldn't have known about it. So from a process point of view, I feel compelled to just kind of express a concern to the city officials that are on here, that residents really need to be engaged in these types of things early in the process, especially a magnitude, a change of this magnitude that's going to impact the entrance and egress of our street. Improvement is probably something that needs to be debated, but it would certainly be a major change. And hopefully you're all aware that these streets are cul-de-sacs. So we literally have one way on and one way off of the street. So whatever gets done at the end of Olmstead for East Avenue through the city or through the highway bridge through the state is going to impact us pretty dramatically. And that's another reason why I want to make sure that this thing doesn't get pushed through hastily, just with the mindset of making a fast decision to, push the button on this because of the weather and the ability to paint some hash marks. The fact of the matter is that if the final decision of the community and the city is to go ahead and do this or try this, it can easily be done in the spring as well. Garrett, I'm just, I'm curious as to whether or not you had an opportunity to review the email communications within and coming from the community in 2015 for the whole host of reasons why, when the city was investigating Don't Block the Box at multiple intersections, the final decision on Olmstead was made not to implement it here. Or is that worthwhile for me to just walk through some of that?
I mean, if you'd love to walk through it, I just want to make sure I can address all your points.
Okay.
But I am familiar with the previous emails, but if there's specific points that I'm happy to address.
Yeah, so there's actually a couple that come to mind, because you said something tonight that we hadn't heard before. The first go around of this in 2015, this was partly prompted by an attempt to work with the state DOT to alleviate the backup of traffic coming off the exit 16 northbound exit ramp. And so that turning, cars could turn into Olmstead and free up East Avenue. I'm not sure if you're aware that this is where it originally started, in addition to investigating Don't Block the Box and other intersections. But at the time,
I'm sorry, Dan, to cut you off. What exit specifically? Was that north or south?
It's northbound exit 16 exit.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and your records would show the communications with ConDOT and the I forget the person's name, but it would be in the emails. The other thing is that at the time that this was brought up under the former director, the late Hal Alvord, one of the conditions of doing the Don't Block the Box on just 2 of the 4 lanes, literally just at Olmstead, was that because people come out of Olmstead and they just don't make a right-hand turn, very often we're making left-hand turns to go into East Norwalk, along with also the school buses, of course, making a left out of there. It doesn't really provide any safety feature to have the box not blocked, because we still have to cross the 2 lanes and come into 2 lanes of traffic that essentially have no break in traffic. The southbound signalization on the bridge is a green light at all times, except when it's red. So even when there's a turning arrow to go onto the highway, it's green. And the northbound exit of exit 16 does not have a no turn on red on it, like the other side of the highway does at the southbound exit. So essentially, there's really no break in traffic in the 2 southbound lanes. When the city was considering that, and the traffic engineers were considering it, and I don't know if Fred Ashragi's on this call, or Mike Yosak, they'll recall that the decision was made that in order to do the Don't Block the Box at Olmstead, it would be done with the condition that there be that they put a restriction on of no left turn out of Olmstead. And there was a discussion, I guess, of making that permanent, or also just doing it during peak hours, at peak rush hours. So tonight I just heard Garrett say that that this was going to be implemented, but not with any restrictive turns on or off of Olmstead. So you don't necessarily have to answer it now, but I'm very concerned and I'm very confused, because one of the reasons why the city stepped back was the whole notion that that this would be in conjunction with restricting our left turn out of the street.
Yes, and we've heard that, and I will be honest. So the do not block the box, the intention is really for congestion. All the rules of the road will still have to be followed. But there are a couple of advantages of doing the striping the box at the intersection. It does improve driver awareness and compliance. So like all rules of the road, there's no 100% guarantee. For example, like people will drive at higher speeds than the speed limit, and people may roll through stop signs, but it will increase the opportunities and the gaps that will exist at your street to reduce delay leaving the street. It also has the potential, as drivers improve compliance and leave the box open more frequently. And we actually stripe a box, and that creates a space, and that starts to open up sight lines. But it really is a congestion mitigation and access improvement. All the rules of the road will still have to be followed. But I did include the accident data, and I think it's very important. And based on the accident data, with an accident every 2.5 years, we wouldn't recommend that the left turn is prohibited during peak hours. So again, this is an improvement. I don't have an answer to completely remediate or mitigate all the concerns, but I would recommend, and I strongly feel that this will offer an improvement over existing conditions.
Okay, I would say that it may appear to be an improvement, but in fact, once you do the striping there, another concern that we had is that it's going to give actually a false sense of safety for someone taking a left turn into Olmstead Place. traveling southbound on East Avenue. Right now, if you have a car that's approaching the intersection to take a left, they're not aware that there's a stop here on red and a don't block the intersection sign on the northbound lane, because obviously the sign is only facing one direction. And so people tend to stop there and wait for the cars to either pass, or if they know it's a stop here on red, they'll actually sit there and make sure that the people are actually going to stop. Because sometimes you think they're going to stop and they don't. Once you put the hash marks there, it's kind of universally known as enforced don't block the box, which, by the way, you can't block any intersection in the state of Connecticut. It's an infraction, but I want to
I understand there may be some concerns, and we can certainly do education around the do not block the box. And I think regardless of the outcome of this meeting, we would send a follow-up letter or memorandum to the neighbors, but we could definitely include within that, and we could post on the website some more education and outreach about, do not block the box, and it still pertains to following the rules of the road. But happy to do outreach and communication as part of this.
Right. Okay. I mean, I agree. And it's not just the residents, obviously, who take a left onto the road. I mean, there, are delivery people and, service people and emergency vehicles and all that other stuff. Let me just ask you this, Garrett, maybe to cut to the chase while we're waiting to see if anybody else wants to speak. I mean, is this essentially a done deal? I mean, is this something that's already been decided and we're just going through the committees to get it approved? Because, obviously I don't want to waste your time or my neighbor's time to answer questions and just have it justified when it's already being done.
No, so I will stop you right there. This is, I want to be 100% transparent. This isn't done. We simply brought it before the traffic authority because we felt strongly that it was the right solution. Hearing your comments at the traffic authority, and the purpose of this public meeting was to get the input from the residents. And I'd hope if you're the only one that speaks tonight that we leave it open for a little bit longer. I'd love to hear from some of the other residents, but it's 100% not a done deal. If there isn't support for this, it will not, I can assure you it will not move forward. But the purpose of tonight was just really to meet with the community, to hear from the community, and just with all our projects. We significantly value, I can tell you, I spent several years in the municipal sector, and community outreach is like one of our biggest priorities. And I think that was one of the things that attracted the city administration for us coming here. So I can 100% say that it's not a done deal. And I think regardless of the meeting tonight, you mentioned that we can't paint right now. So I don't think there is an immediate rush for resolution, but I would like to hear the input from more residents and stakeholders before we move back to the traffic authority. We'll certainly follow back up with the traffic authority to close the loop. But I would like to hear from more residents.
Yeah, and is there anybody's hand raised now? Otherwise, I'll continue with some of the concerns that we had.
Still doesn't look like it, either on the Zoom call or YouTube. Everybody seems
okay.
Pretty
So just cut me off if we need to. Speaking of that too, Garrett, with the last go around with this, I told you it happened in a similar manner where it just appeared on traffic authority. We had to get the city to immediately hit the pause button then too. The meeting that we had actually filled one of the meeting rooms on the third floor of City Hall.
I was hoping we would get a turnout like that tonight.
What's that?
I was hoping we would get a similar turnout.
Yeah, me too. It's tough on weeknights for people. And I know people are kind of City Hall weary now in East Norwalk. I know there's some rules in here about no expletives and don't be derogatory, but my second language is sarcasm. So I will say that this last go around, people really felt, or in the East Norwalk in general, and I'm just here to represent myself, not the association board. Whenever we see something with the word improvement in it, and in East Norwalk, we really kind of get alarmed. Because the things that seem to be coming from the city to make improvements could really have dramatic impacts on our quality of life on a daily basis, and also on our property values. So I know one of them was that restriction for the left turn. I'm still really kind of concerned with that, with the box, especially the way it gets painted. I wanted to ask you if the drawings that you're showing from the state, is that to scale? And the drawing that you did for the hash marks for Olmstead?
So the drawing from the state, that's a concept. Those are the standards. The drawing that we did is just a high level concept. We would install it to, this is the state spec. And let me just go back to our concept. That's not the final dimension. We would review in-house, and we would outline it.
Okay, yeah, and I'd be curious as to what the state standards are for how that is. If you could show us,
yeah, I can go back to
that to scale. Because one of the issues that you said that right now is happening with the non-compliance with the signage is that the signage is, you really don't see it until you're right at the intersection, and if there's an SUV or a truck in that lane, right, it's hard to see it. But depending on where those hash marks are, you're just coming to an angle in the road where it starts to go up on the incline. So I think you guys did some sightline analysis in here, but I would say that if the sign is being ignored, the hash marks are going to be ignored too, because either you're not going to see it because there's a car ahead of you, or cars are already queuing in it while the light is still green. And by the time you hit the hash marks, you're probably in the intersection. So I'm not an engineer and I don't play one on TV, but I don't know how you would draw this where you think it would be effective and safe.
And I'll be honest, like the signs where they are today, I think you hit the head right on the nail. They're off to the side of a 2-lane roadway. It's very busy, let's be honest. And if you're on the inside lane, your sight lines aren't always clear to those signs. So it's very often to no one's fault that they entered the intersection and they are blocking the intersection. So the spacing requirements, the angles that you see on this diagram, even the thickness of the paint is so that it will really stand out and have a presence. You can just see some of the offsets and the dimensioning, which we have to work within, but it would be within the footprint of Olmstead Road. So I think it's about 30 feet wide. It would ultimately be a 30-foot box. I think we show the concept. I would imagine it would be located a little bit closer to the stop bar. That wasn't perfectly drawn picture. But again, I just go back to the research, and they're proven effective. There's reasons why other cities have adopted these, and we believe that, again, this isn't a silver bullet. It's not the be all end all, but we think it'll make it a little bit better. And if you could, get in and out of that street and maybe not have to wait for an additional cycle of the light at the intersection to the north, we would consider that successful. And like everything we do, Kyle is on this call because he's our traffic data analyst, and he's going to continue to monitor the situation. So everything we do, we monitor, and if it's not effective, then we'll remove it. But I just want that we follow the data, we continue to track the data, and we would continue to be open to listen to the community as we would, and we're available at all times.
Great. Yes, I think if you guys are going to continue doing some analysis on this based on the feedback, one of the things that came up that in 2015 is that everyone who lives here is very aware of the extremely high compliance rate of stop here on red and don't block the intersection on the other side of the bridge, where it allows the Colony Place people to take a left out and where it meets up at Hendricks. You probably have, I would say 99.9% compliance there. One is the visibility of the signs and the order they were in. I think ours were reversed at one time, the stop here versus the don't block. But also in the past, the white line that's striped across the road there is not only thicker, but it seems to be maintained more frequently. We actually had a resident who offered to go out at midnight with a can of white paint and redo the one at Olmstead because the city isn't, maintaining it so that it's more visible. But I think that it also needs to be wider as well. And and just it's something that you would take into account to say, maybe you guys can analyze it to say where you have nearly 100% compliance at Colony, why isn't that same compliance with the signage working there at Olmstead? And I do want to say something too, Garrett, because a couple of times now you've mentioned congestion is one of the key reasons for this. So again, back in 2015, we had identified that it's 20% of the issues with that whole corridor are creating 80% of the problems. And it basically has to do with not clearing the queue on the bridge. And with that, East Norwalkers, I've given up, honestly. I have to just tell you the truth. I've given up on trying to get the signalization time to clear the bridge. We've worked with the state, we've worked with the city, and in the absence of queuing the turning lanes on the bridge, the congestion is going to continue to be a problem. And I don't think we should be looking to, to address the congestion issue by doing something that we're not 100% sure of how it's going to impact two streets that only have one way on and one way off. I think we should look at doing the things that we recommended to the city 7 years ago, a whole list of them that had to do with signalization, timing, signage, and enforcement. And if you didn't stumble on those in your research from the first go around, I'm happy to email it to you probably tomorrow.
No, I am familiar with the past correspondence, but I'd be happy to briefly touch on those. So I'll kind of work backwards, but for the enforcement piece, this do not block the box proposal just really creates another tool in the police department's tool set to enforce this area. I understand it's congested and it's a very tight, and there's challenges with pulling people over. But what I truly believe is that the box identifies a space for, the 85% of drivers that want to do the right thing and then that want to stop, but, just sometimes they're not sure of how much room they have, and it helps clarify that situation. But this does provide another tool in the toolbox, and also, people are more reluctant to encroach on the intersection when there's a fine associated, and we know when there's a penalty. So we are happy to have conversations with the Norwalk Police Department. I don't want you to give up on the transportation improvements. So I do want to note that I mentioned we saw a drone video. So I met a consultant in the field and watched them fly the drone. They showed me how they do it, but they were working for Connecticut DOT, and Connecticut DOT is currently investigating this intersection, so the bridge, the highway ramps, for future infrastructure projects. They're just in the very, very preliminary stage. So and that would just be looking at what a conceptual design is, and that hasn't been shared with us yet. It's very, very preliminary, and that's why we don't have videos to share at this point. But what I can say is, this area that we're talking about tonight is within their study area. And the reality is there's only so much you can do with timing at such a busy location. And there really needs to be some infrastructure improvements, particularly around the ramps, because it is the convergence of such high traffic volumes. So I did want to make you aware of that. It's currently under study. And I did review the former memos. And I know there is some, ideas or some suggestions floated about signalization here. But the reality is that this exact concept you have before you would be the first thing CONDOT would say to do. So all new traffic signals have to be approved by the state as part of that process. But there's many challenges, and to be honest, there's many challenges with putting any more signal infrastructure at Olmstead. Some of the challenges are the volumes likely aren't going to warrant it. If that were the case, we'd be installing a signal at the end of every cul-de-sac that merges with East Avenue. So a major consideration, the expense, signals are $600,000. I'm not saying that this would be $600,000, but also the challenge is when you add more signals in an already congested area and they're very, very closely spaced, it actually worsens congestion and doesn't improve it, because when you install a new signal at a new location, it takes space, there's less stacking capacity, and the research finds that operations go down. So I did look at the previous correspondence I foresee major challenges with the signal, but I did want to let you know that the CONDOT is looking at the larger area. And I drive this intersection every day on my way into the office, and I leave through it at the end of the day. And I can tell you that it doesn't have enough capacity. For example, I get off of that northbound off ramp every day, and it often is backing up right onto the main line, and it's a problem, and it needs to be addressed. And it really is a matter of just the infrastructure not being adequate for the volume.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Dan.
No, go ahead, Kyle. I'm sorry.
Oh, and if I could just add on to Garrett, I also go through this intersection every day, and I recently started here a couple months ago and moved here from New Jersey. When I first went through the intersection, the signage was also very confusing to me. And I personally feel like if there had been a do not block the box, then it might have been a little more simpler, but I understand your concerns about it as well. So I just wanted to say,
yeah. And I would just want to make sure that we're not treating a symptom, by staging it as an improvement for something else when we're going to go through this expense and we don't really know if it's going to help or not. And I do want to make sure there's an exit strategy if we feel that it's probably better off without it, especially given the lack of enforcement. Because the one on the bridge, as you know, can't be enforced. Garrett, I want to correct something just because maybe you're not aware. So when you say CONDOT is looking at the entire bridge and that intersection, they have been looking at it for 19 years. It's been the looking at it is 19 years. Yep. It's an ongoing joke, and the guys up there know it, and we lovingly remind them. The latest iteration of it will dramatically change the intersection because what they're about to propose, that seems likely, is a diverging diamond interchange. And so there'll be property takings actually at Olmstead. So all of what you're suggesting would probably go away in a few years anyway. In terms of the cost of the light, one of the suggestions we had, you'll see in the list, was to do a flashing stop here on red and don't block the intersection that's timed to the light that's already at the highway. We had already rescinded the request for a full traffic, the $600,000 traffic light there because of the backup. The way that it would be timed, it could create backup onto from St. John's Place. But we thought that something that could be timed to the signal of the red light that would flash, kind of like, stop here when, a stop sign ahead when flashing, or, something like that. And since the state and the city are going to be digging up all of, East Avenue anyway for the utility underground work, we really thought that could be a good opportunity to build that technology in. And it probably would be helpful down the road if we can't convince the state to not do the diverging diamond. So in terms of the backup there with the timing at the bridge, we didn't see any reason why the queue on the bridge couldn't be cleared by allowing the southbound, the people who are getting on the highway southbound from the northbound lane. Right now, that green light only lets a handful of people through it. We've noticed that other left turns in the city, as many as 10 to 13 cars can get through on a signal. And so perhaps that's something to look at too, is why that left turn is so short to be able to, that doesn't allow the queue on the bridge to clear. That's the lane that's creating the bulk of the traffic, in addition to the other two. But once that lane backs up, even once they clear the don't block the box hash mark, as you guys know, when you exit there, you can't actually negotiate that turn if the rear end of the car is still sticking out there. So I completely disagree. I think the timing of the southbound light needs to be changed to clear the queue. If it backs up any further on the southbound side from East Avenue, you're really only blocking driveways at that point. You're blocking, I think, one residential street and then driveways into businesses that aren't open in the morning.
And so I'll just a couple of those. So the flashing light what you have before you would be the recommendation before any hard infrastructure, but a flashing light there, my fear is it would be more confusing and we'd see the accidents go up. Regarding the so this treatment, it's cheap. Like honestly, it's pavement markings and signage, and if we can make things a little bit better for the residents, I would strongly recommend the implementation of this project. And again, we'll go back and evaluate it. And then I've only been here, so I've only been here for 8 months. But I can tell you, if this was a problem in 2000, I believe the email was 2015, and it's still a problem today. We've gone through, I know we've gone through many different iterations and many different timings along the corridor, and regardless of what those exact timings were, there's still habitual congestion here. And look, at some point when this starts backing up on the state highway system, they have to do something about it. And I know it's taken some time and it is frustrating, but I do believe concepts are being, I don't know what they are, and I can't tell you the extent. I know there's different alternatives. You mentioned a couple, but we really don't know. But this is just something we can do now, and it will make it a little bit better for residents. And when I was out there, I wanted to be proactive. Our department looks to be proactive. We get citizen inquiries that's somewhat reactive, but we are always looking to be proactive. And this would be our recommendation moving forward. We have to be consistent with the federal, state, and our own ordinances. But this would be a recommendation. And I do appreciate all your comments. I think they were all great comments. And if you have additional comments, I'd be happy to hear them. But this is really our recommendation. It's a low cost treatment. It's not an be all end all. I think we'll continue to look at improvements on East Avenue, and there's several projects in the pipeline, as you know. And then when projects like the interchange come up, we will be an advocate. And I think it's important we have this dialogue now, and it's part of the record, because we will be advocates for improvements here.
Thank you. I appreciate your honesty with that, and letting us know that this is going to stand in terms of the recommendation. I do want you to know.
I want to just clarify. This is our recommendation. This is the treatment that we'll recommend. But I'm not going to move forward if we don't have, as I mentioned before, if we don't have the support of the community, it won't move forward. But this is really our solution. This is our recommendation. Yeah. It's just we have to be consistent with all the guidelines and policies.
Yeah, got it. I think the community, and I'll try to do a recap for them as well and urge them to watch the video on this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Think, with one of the concerns coming off the table, that there is no requirement then this time around to limit to restrict our left turn. Yeah, I think that's probably one of the in the top 5 concerns that people had. And I do think that if the most of the neighbors that I know on the street would agree that there has been some improvement since the don't block the box and the stop here on red went in. It would be better if there was enforcement, which we know is difficult to do at any of these intersections, but there has been improvement. And if this is something that's cheap, easy, low-hanging fruit, then maybe we go ahead with it in the final end. I still want to do some more research on it, but
absolutely.
And then just to know that it's something that ultimately can be undone if we find. And actually, how will you know if this is effective, Garrett? How will you know if there's any more compliance than there wasn't? Because there's really no ticketing there. It's not like the tickets are going to go way down. How would you guys measure it scientifically or whatever?
I mean, I think we do observations. So there's observations that you can do, like the percent of time that the intersection's blocked and open. And that's just simply either a camera or a member of staff being out there. And we can do it on a couple occasions. I will put the caveat that we have limited resources, but we'd also, again, we work with the community, we'd solicit feedback from the community. And I think it's important that we hear from the community after it's installed. There is one more point I wanted to make. And I did, your previous emails, but I do strongly believe that this is the path forward. When I put the pros and cons together, like you mentioned, like there really is all pros. And, if at the end of the day it doesn't work, then it paint fades with time and it can be ground out or hydroblasted out. So.
Yeah. I hope if there's any neighbors still on here, I hope you'll raise your hand if you're for or against, or just concerns or suggestions. And, because otherwise we want, the city to be able to interact with us based on your feedback. And actually the Garrett, I won't mention the name, but the one person who wrote into you that prompted the reconsideration of this, I'm pretty sure doesn't even live on Olmstead, just so that you know that.
I will clarify that, we found out that they weren't a resident of Olmstead subsequently. They are a resident of the city, and they are, they travel within the right of way. And
gotcha. Okay.
I think, yeah.
Okay.
But no, I hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Diane,
And just to make it clear to the traffic authority too, maybe you can make that correction.
I can make that. I would be happy to make that correction.
Thank you.
Diane, you had listed the top 5 concerns for residents. I don't know if that's something that you knew off the top of your head, but maybe that's something just so that we have that list if you have it possible.
Yeah, I will email that over. Obviously the big one was the left turn restriction. But it was also having to do with the fact that, the other 2 lanes would have to be crossed. Both the chief and the deputy chief agreed there would be virtually no enforcement. And I don't have that email right in front of me, but I'll get that over to you guys.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yeah, it's appreciated. Thank you.
And we also have somebody raising their hand. So I will ask them to unmute. JCO, I will ask you to, you'll actually have permission to unmute. If you could just state your name and address for the record before you do speak, that'd be great. All right, so you now have the ability to unmute.
Hi, this is Joanne O'Boy. We've lived on the block. We're at 4 Olmstead Place. Our family's been here for 65 years. And it's been very interesting, and thank you, Diane. I think you explained everything pretty accurately and succinctly. But the problem with the street is it's a dead-end street. I mean, we can only go out on East Avenue. And quite frankly, the traffic is so much that basically I make a right-hand turn starting from 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning to get out of the street. And then I go around and then go back on East Avenue because of all the traffic. It's just so much traffic. And what happened to make it worse, in my opinion, was that they made the beginning of the street narrower. We had a wide angle before, so at least you had a little leeway. I mean, but now there's very little. I mean, it's pretty close when you're making a left-hand turn coming from the northbound exit 16 and you got to go into the street. And a lot of people, there's new people that live in the city and they don't, they've never been in a city this size before and they don't know the traffic rules. I mean, I was talking to somebody the other day and they don't even know what a flashing light on the side means. They didn't know that they had to stop. They were telling me that, oh, there was this person walking and this light was flashing on the side. And I told them, I said, when you see that, you're supposed to stop. They have the right of way. Thank you very much for this. And I'll send an email and but I think cameras would be a good idea. And if you wanted to enforce tickets, you could use a camera. You could just, like in other towns, they use a camera and they take the picture of the license plate.
So unfortunately, it's not legal in Connecticut. In other states, it is legal, but there is no statute or law in the state. I think we're proponents of automatic speed enforcement, but currently that's just not within our power.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
I appreciate your attendance on the call, and I appreciate you taking the time. And again, I just reiterate that this is an improvement. I don't have the be-all, end-all solution, but this is one step in the right direction, and we'll continue to advocate for improvements to the roadway as opportunities arise.
Okay, and thank you all, and thank you, Diane. You're great.
Okay, it's Diane. I see your hand. So Garrett, I'll take her.
Yeah, I think we're approaching 7:30, so I do want to be respectful. But absolutely.
Can you tell us if there's no other resident? And thank you, Mrs. O'Boy. I know you have the whole history here. I'm so glad to know that, just I love all of my neighbors here, especially some of those who have been around from day one here. Thank you. So Garrett, can you just tell us, who's ever on the call, like literally what are the next steps then?
Yeah, so I think what we'll do is, as you mentioned, it's not time dependent, but I do want to get back to the traffic authority with our findings. So I think we'll just leave this open for the next 2 weeks to receive comments, whether written or emailed. If you could reach out to your neighbors and let them know, and please encourage them. And if you need the flyer to resubmit or want to share it through any additional channels you have, I know we've had posted the meeting on the city's website, but we'd love to have as much feedback as possible. I think we remain that this is the best treatment, but again, we're just looking for some support for the community, and then ultimately, as you requested, we won't put this on the agenda for December. We'll give some time for the residents to give feedback, but then I think we'll plan on January adding this as an item and presenting to the traffic authority to close the loop.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time, your comments, and I'm glad we were able to set a pretty exhaustive record. So you can encourage anyone to go back and watch this video. But hopefully we've addressed all the questions. But we will remain available via email or letter to answer further questions. And you can certainly reach out to me anytime. And I think if there's no further hands raised. Oh, I think we got one more, and then
I'm sorry, just a housekeeping thing. Is the video going to be posted on the regular city YouTube channel, or do you have to send us a link for me to send out?
So the video actually is live on YouTube right now. When this ends, it'll automatically be uploaded and available the second it's over.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, so I'll email that out to everyone. Thanks, guys. Okay.
Yeah, I really appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone, for who attended the call, and the video will be available if you need to reference it. But please don't hesitate to reach out. We really like to hear from you and receive some letters, whether in favor or against. All right, Tyler. I think with that, I think that concludes the meeting.
Yeah, there's no more hands. Great meeting, and I think we really did cover a lot, and I'm glad we got everything on record. So I sent you guys a link to YouTube. I don't know if you received that in your emails.
I think I did. Thank you, Tyler.
Awesome. And then when it's on the website, I'll just send you that as well, just so you have everything.
Okay, appreciate it.